Welcome back to Doing Business As, the small business law podcast from Tracktown Law. I'm Jared Hight, attorney and founder of Tracktown Law. These days, I run a virtual law firm serving small business owners across Oregon and Idaho. This podcast is my way of helping you get grounded legal insight without the jargon, the fluff, or the thought leadership you didn't ask for. If you're new here, this is episode 3. In episode 2, we covered sole proprietorships, what they are, how they work, and why they're so common. Today, we're moving one step forward and asking the natural follow-up. When should you stop operating as a sole prop and convert to an LLC? Before we get into it, the usual disclaimer. I'm a licensed attorney in Oregon and Idaho, but listening to this podcast doesn't create an attorney-client relationship, and nothing here should be taken as legal advice for your specific situation. This is general information, though it may help you figure out when it's time to get something more tailored. All right, let's talk about conversion. The biggest misconception about forming an LLC is that it's a milestone, something you do after you've made it, or after you hit a certain dollar figure in revenue. But forming an LLC is less like getting promoted and more like putting on a seatbelt. It's not a reward, it's protection, and the sooner you use it, the more value you'll get. So when is the right time to stop operating as a sole proprietor and move to an LLC? Here's a simple rule of thumb. When the business starts to expose you to real risk, financial, legal, or reputational, it's time. Let's walk through what that actually means. First, are you working with people you don't know personally? Because that's where most problems start. The moment your customer base moves beyond friends and family, the margin for misunderstanding widens. And when something goes wrong, whether it's a late shipment, a faulty product, or a simple miscommunication, it's not your business they'll come after, it's you. That's the core issue with sole proprietorships. There's no legal distinction between you and the business. Same name, same social security number, same liability. And liability comes in all flavors. If you're handling personal data, offering advice, delivering a physical product, operating on someone else's property, or dealing with vehicles or tools, there's risk baked in. And in a sole proprietorship, that risk hits your bank account, not your business. Then there's hiring. Let's say you're growing and you've brought in a contractor or a part-time employee. Congratulations, now you're responsible for what they do under your banner. If your cousin's kid is helping you pack boxes and he drops a $2,000 sculpture or mislabels a shipment that violates FDA guidelines, that's on you. An LLC can't prevent lawsuits, but it can create a layer of legal separation between your personal life and your business operations. That's a big deal. You should also think seriously about forming an LLC if you've invested money in your business. I'm not talking about $40 for a domain name and a Canvas subscription. I'm talking about real investments, equipment, marketing, tools, materials. If you've spent thousands of dollars to get this thing off the ground, you probably don't want one unexpected legal issue undoing it. The LLC helps insulate your personal assets from those business risks. It doesn't mean you're lawsuit proof, but it's a foundational step in shielding your personal property from business debts or claims. Another major sign, you're signing contracts. If you're entering into agreements with vendors, clients, landlords, or even collaborators, those contracts should be with the legal entity, not you personally. Otherwise, every deal you make becomes a personal promise, and personal promises carry personal liability. Let's talk money, because sometimes the reason to form an LLC is as simple as this. You're making some. If your business is no longer just a side project, if it's paying bills or replacing income or allowing you to say no to your old job, then it's time to structure it like the serious operation it is. Even if you're not planning to grow a team or open a storefront, you still want the protection, the credibility, and the control that a legal entity provides. And credibility matters. If you're trying to land larger clients or secure business credit or build a brand that isn't just your personal name, an LLC helps you do that. It creates a clearer line between you and the business, not just legally, but psychologically and professionally, and that matters in how you're perceived. So that's the when. Now let's talk about the how. Forming an LLC in Oregon or Idaho is relatively simple. In both states, you file with the Secretary of State. Oregon charges $100 a year. Idaho charges $100 once with no annual fee. You'll need to designate a registered agent, create an operating agreement, and open a business bank account. But here's the catch. The paperwork is just the starting point. The structure is what matters. Who owns the business? Who controls it? How are decisions made? What happens if someone leaves, dies, or wants to sell their share? Those are the questions a good operating agreement answers. And most free online templates don't do it well. They're either too vague to protect you or too generic to apply. And timing matters. An LLC doesn't protect you retroactively. If you sign a contract today and form the LLC next week, guess what? You're still personally liable for that contract. That's why waiting until there's a problem to file is too late. The time to put up the guardrails is before the sharp curve, not after. Now let me be clear. An LLC doesn't make you invincible. If you commit fraud or mix business and personal funds or fail to follow basic legal formalities, a court can pierce the veil and hold you personally liable anyway. But if you treat the LLC like a real entity, separate accounts, clean books, clear contracts, it does what it's supposed to do. It protects you. One last point, because it comes up a lot. Tax benefits. People hear that an LLC saves you money on taxes. That's not automatically true. By default, a single member LLC is taxed just like a sole proprietorship. Same goes for multi-member LLCs and partnerships. You can elect to be taxed as an S-corp later, which can reduce self-employment taxes in some cases, but that's a separate decision with its own requirements and trade-offs. We'll cover that in a later episode. So here's the takeaway. If your business has real money, real customers, real contracts, or real risk, it's probably time to move out of the sole prop territory and into the LLC structure. You don't have to wait for some magic threshold, you just have to decide that protecting what you're building is worth it. At Tracktown Law, I help business owners across Oregon and Idaho form LLCs, draft operating agreements that actually fit their business, and plan for what happens next. My business services are billed hourly, not flat fee like estate planning, but you'll get efficient, practical guidance without upselling or legal theater. In our next episode, we're going to tackle a question I get all the time. Do I really need a registered agent? You probably do, but we'll dig into why, who qualifies, and what can go wrong when you list your name and then stop checking your mail. You can also read a written version of today's episode over on the Tracktown Law blog. That post is especially helpful if you want to refer back, share it with someone else, or just prefer your insights in text form. Thanks for listening. I'm Jared Hight, and this is Doing Business As.